Hello, hi guys, and welcome back to Design Analysis. In this video, we'll be deconstructing this beautiful dress. So let's get started. So by now we know the drifts. Let's deconstruct this under the following elements. Let's start with the silhouette as usual. So what can we see? Obviously, we can see that this is a fit and flare silhouette. So it is fitted around the bodice. Let's change that to black. It is fitted around the bodice, the upper part of the bodice, and then a flare that follows mostly around the hip here and then out like that. So we have a fit and flare silhouette. The fabric, I think this fabric is a crepe fabric or a fabric of similar quality. I'll go with crepe. So the fabric is a crepe fabric. Crepe fabric allows for some stretch, which encourages fit in some kind of smooth fit in a garment. Okay, so what about the symmetry? Of course, this is a symmetrical. Of course, this is a symmetrical dress because what we have on this side is what we have on the other side, right? And then the constructions, we can see that we have a very high neckline. Most likely the body's neckline is just left like that, or maybe about not more than 1 centimeter is reduced round from the shoulder point to the CF. Waistline, we have, let's clean all this. For the waistline, you can see that we have our natural waistline. We have the natural waistline, so the waistline will probably just be lowered by about 2 cm so that I can follow the natural waistline, right? And then the darts position. Okay, so one thing before I go on, while I was drafting the pattern for this and then I had to zoom in to see the details, I realized that the darts here is actually a princess seam that goes into the armhole. And then I began to question if this image was actually AI generated. The reason being that usually the sleeve is a delicate area, right? And I wouldn't want it distorted. Now I'm talking from a pattern maker's point of view by adding so much cut around the area. So there's already a separation because of the yoke, and then now this lower bodice is also separated into the armhole again. I think if I were to draft it on my own, I would prefer the seam, the princess seam, just going straight up like that. That's the continuation of the shoulder dart right down like this. That is what I've been. Another thing I noticed is the darts. Where's darts coming into? Since this is a flare, I don't know what purpose this dart is serving, except maybe just additional detail. I don't know, because it's really not serving any purpose there. So I don't know why there'll be a dot here. And of course, the fact that the dress looks so crisp, no fold, wearing fold, no wear fold around, and it's so smooth, as if it's not AI generated, it's most likely has been touched up so much, some Photoshop, some editing or something like that. Yeah, so we have the princess seam. Getting back to the elements, we have the princess seam and we have this dart, and then we have this pocket flap. I'm thinking there might be no pocket bag inside. That means it's just a faux pockets, right? And of course this eye-catching pleats that is on the center front, right? So we've got lots of details there. We have the yoke, we have the princess seam, we have a waist dart on the lower part. We also have pocket flap. I'm thinking it's a let's just put 4. Did I change that? So let's just say 4 flap, and then we have a CF plate, right? So there's a lot there. So let's move on. So to the next pattern. So what pattern will be needed? We'll of course need our basic torso block, and then we'll extend that into the mid-length because it looks like it's a mid-length. It's obviously below the knee. It's a mid-length kind of dress. Now to our guesstimation, yes, we rightly said that this is a very high neckline, and the yoke is actually very high, is above this arm side, is above the armpit area. So we have this, let's say, high chest around that, and this waistline is just the normal waistline, or let me say natural waistline, right? And then the flap is actually bent, so it goes like this. So it is, so you need two lines to show that. So it is higher here and lower here, right? And then the length, mid length. So with that, we can get started with the draft. Okay, so like I said, you need your front bodice, right? And then the waistline, let's change to red, and the waistline is lowered, so maybe from here to here should be about maybe 1.5 or 2 cm, right? So, and then about 0.5 or 1 cm around the side. Okay, then you can mark the chest line and then separate the upper bodies from the lower bodies, right? Nice. And then the next thing, talking about the upper body, separate it at the yoke. Then we can continue the darts. Like I said, the princess seam, just going from the usual darts, usual shoulder darts, and then this, and then make sure to notch, make sure to put your notches so that it will be easy for you to assemble your patterns together. Now I'm explaining how I would have done this, right? We'll soon get to how it was put together on the dress. So then I'll close the darts of the lower piece, right, and transfer that dart into the hemline. If you want it wider, of course you can add more flare to the side, right? And don't forget to mark out the flap, right? So for the CF pleats, you can see that let's go back to the illustration. You can see that the pleat is not fading into the hem, it's actually folded to at the hem. So if it were to be fading into the hem, then this point and this point will be closed, and this one, the upper area here, will just be open. But since it is folded, you need to add a little more fabric here. That's why. But of course this one is wider, and then that will be in the sewing. This about 1 inch is sewn together to give this effect, to give this sewn effect that you can see here before the pleats now shows, right? And don't forget to true your darts so that you can have a smooth curve and no awkward shape. So that is how I would have done it, right? But then let's go to what we can see on the dress. What we can see on the dress is this, a princess seam that goes into the armhole again after this yoke is cut off, right? So we have that princess seam, and then with the princess seam, don't forget to notch so that it will be easy for you to assemble. And of course, that I forgot to mention here is that there's what's it called, this shaping here is not just your diamond or triangle waist dart. Of course there's underbust shaping around it, and that's the effect of contouring, right? And so what we'll have here is, if you leave this dart open because you want to sew it as it is seen in the garment, then that means you'll be introducing the flare from the side. So you can measure what the extra would have been if you had done this. That means the distance of this to this, and then introduce it to the side, right? And then introduce the pleats as usual, and then during the sewing about 1 inch, that's about 2.5 centimeters, yeah. And then that is it. Don't forget to true the darts and add the seam allowance, and then that is it for the pattern, and you're ready for sewing. Okay, so next is what our teaser for this episode. We talked about yokes, right? Yeah, fun fact, yokes were originally designed for durability. In some parts they are added to double up, just to increase strength. They are usually added in parts where wear and tear is common, right? So in this video, we saw that a yoke was added to the upper part of the body. So the teaser is, which other part of the garment can a yoke be added to? So that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned a thing or two, and I'll see you in my next video, inshallah. Bye.